here. Julie is out. Lynn.
Yeah.
Marissa is no longer with us. Andrew here. Candy. And Kathleen is not here yet. I'm hoping those two will show up and we'll see. Doesn't look like we have any announcements, so we will get into the public hearing. If you want to do your presentation?
Yeah, sure. Let me do that. Good evening, planning commission and residents of Blanco. This first item, which is public hearing, that will also be for new business item number one. Request from Patrick Smith to allow for a home occupation in the R3 district on 2nd Street. And normally we do allow home occupation, but if you look at the home occupation section of 4.8, there are some prohibited occupations. There's a list there, and one of them is a barbershop and beautician. I can't tell you why exactly, but I wasn't here, but at the time, probably some of the reasons for that is a lot of times barbershop and beautician have more than one person at a time at their shop. So if we look at that as a home-based business, this is a business owner, Jesse Smith's a business owner on 281. I believe it's by appointment only, or at least a single chair. So if you look at that, you have single family home, past the top here, about 20 minutes for the home, but they add just something small where we have one chair and we have parking. There's an off-street, on-street parking. This would not be something that would be a problem. So what staff looked at was the restrictions that were needed was one customer at a time or one chair, and it just limited signage. So obviously, as we've been talking about signage, they have the right to have some signage, but the neighborhood is just a little bit smaller than what we normally allow in a commercial or R5 area. This is R3. So that's kind of that's really the explanation to this. And then during the section, for the agenda item, we can talk a little more. Thanks.
Did y'all want to speak up this at all? We might have some questions for y'all later, but anything you don't want to add to it?
I was just gonna say, I don't need it signed like at my shop because I already have like the clientele. I don't need to have
So you basically
like I'm not gonna be advertising at my house. Like I'm gonna do the existing clients I already have.
So are you basically going to shut down over here and move it over here? Okay. All right. Do we anything else you want to add until we get? We might have some questions later, but
basically that it's financial.
okay.
You know, she started out over here, it was 400 a month, and within 3 years he went to 1600 a month. Double, he went to 800, so he doubled it, and he doubled it again in 3 years. So you know, just one person working, pretty tough.
Yeah. And water and electricity. And I know the whole thing.
I feel like the impact there will be minimal. Actually, she won't be driving back and forth because she'll already be there. She only has services one client at a time. Somebody might show up ahead of time, but other than that, there's only 4 houses on that street. So it's not like, you know, it's not a busy street, right? And it's not a through street either. It's a dead end.
Okay. We will go ahead and close the public hearing and open the regular meeting. So first thing on new business we will be discussing is going to be this. So y'all had a chance to look through it. Yeah. Thoughts, discussion?
Yeah, I drove over there. You know, took a nice little gem of the community. Realize how nice it's back there, but like he was saying, it's a dead end. There's more than enough parking on the property that if you saw 1 or 2 vehicles, it wouldn't look any worse than what's sitting on Cherry Street right in the middle of school lanes. You know, people parking right there. So I think overall, with what I've obviously just seen through the years of Jesse's business inside there, I've seen more than 2 parts that ever. So I think overall, financially too, that's what we want to do is help local business. I think that it's a beautiful building.
Lynn and they had a few concerns.
Well, and I'm for it, but based on the paperwork, the reasonings that you guys had in the letter would be all the reasons we would not approve it. financial hardship because rent's too high down the street, you have a kid in school. So my question is, should that letter be updated before it goes to city council and for approval? Because variances should be because of the actual property and what's happening with that property. So for example, the letter would be fashioned more toward an R3 zoning location, not a lot of houses on the street. It's a small lot, high density, R3, which is exactly the same as an R5, which is what you're looking to move it toward in a variance. Same setbacks. In other words, R3s are really the same as R5s in size. And maybe fashion the letter more toward why the variance would fit that property.
So, let me say it this way. You can do that, you can just rewrite the letter, to just, I'll state the reasons why it's not a problem to grant the variance. And that's because the impact is very little, like Andrew just mentioned. It's a dead-end road, there's plenty of parking, and as a high density, which is R3, high density, there's basically very little impact. That's a reason to approve it. If we don't want the letter included, we can just have him make those the reasons why. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me, but that's fine.
Well, I don't know, it's just for legal documentation purposes, it becomes a record under that variance. I didn't want it to appear that it was being approved for,
Didn't want to
you
set
know,
precedent.
reasonings that we would not be able to approve it for.
I can work with the
But
applicant
that's
to
totally up
revise
to
that.
you, for revision on that, and not to come back to us. So they can go on to city council with just maybe some consideration on if anything should happen. with the letter.
We'll get done by the end of the week. No problem.
And you want to make a motion that-
Yeah, I would like to make a motion to approve the request for the salon business to operate under variance at that location on Second Street with city administrator taking consideration of the application to make sure that it fits within our code guidelines.
We have a second? All in favor? I think, all right, that happens. Thank you. You know, you certainly stay up and leave people.
Are you guys here?
I am.
Thank you. I was looking up and all I found was a picture.
All right, so that go to council next week.
Every once in a while, I get this other Patrick's Smith report card.
Oh, no.
I don't really rush home and show it to my parents before I had to get it back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that should go to council next week,
Yes.
or I'll get with you all and do small adjustments and.
Okay, awesome.
I'll
Thank
get,
you.
I'll get with you in a couple of days. Thanks.
Thank you.
And what if you don't feel it needs it, that's fine, I just want
I'll take care of it. I'll take care of it in a couple of days.
Okay, so the next thing we're gonna talk about is gonna be Los Altos. I'm assuming this is essentially a shall approve.
Yeah, it's a shall approve concept plan. And the PDD plan unit development was approved, in the past, and so this is just a final plat. Plans are approved, and the only reason why it took this long to get to you is because, Hugo and I have been working on a way to put 12th Street. I don't know if you've driven over there, but 12th Street, which every street in this town look like that, but, eventually. So from Mesquite down to Green Lawn, they leveled up, improved it, and then they basically paid for it. So, but we reviewed everything, and they're basically a shower tree, and Hugo's here to make a question. Yeah.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I drove a Sunday just for the hell of it, and it was nice to see that finally connected after 18 years. It was great. The lots are cute.
To my understanding, this is something that we're required to approve unless there is some on cute, not saying anything, so. we have-
As per state law, yes, you need to approve it.
we have a motion.
It was
Second,
to, a second.
all in favor? All right, that will go to council next week, I guess, as well. Next, we're going to be moving on to Laura's presentation, Laura, are you showing us anything, or we just go straight to her, go over it?
So let's do this, if you would like, since the council members here, why don't we go to her and then go back to three here? And it's already-
So just to recap, proposal that the city moved to 275 Blossom.
Yes. And actually just got a note that the calculations are wrong, it's actually supposed to be 278 feet, so I'll make that update, but the presentation will just stick with 270.
Wow.
Okay, so, yeah, what I'm proposing is to set our blocks at 275 feet. It's or 278, it's how Blanco is historically laid out and how most of what Blanco is today. So the picture on the left is an original map. You can see the smaller 278-foot blocks up top. Bigger blocks to the south of the river, but those are actually smaller than what we have in the south today, because some of those streets don't exist. But anyways, if you zoom in on this, the middle picture, it's the core blocks, the 278-foot blocks. You know, for example, the courthouse, that's a block. The Uptown Complex back to Elm Street, that's one block. The library, that's one block. They're all the same size, small blocks. So what's the problem? Our UBC says that you can have blocks up to 1,300 feet, which is about a quarter mile. And so to help visualize that, I drew over on the picture on the right. You get probably about 8 or so blocks instead of all those blocks we have today. So I'm proposing we keep the small blocks as opposed to the big blocks. I think it keeps things on a smaller scale. These are small.
Is that your main reason for wanting to kind of just get a set in stone and on paper to not allow the bigger, just to keep it that kind of vibe?
I think that will do a lot to help to maintain Blanco's character. Two other reasons here. So the first one is basically what I just talked about. The second one is I think it'll limit kind of the big box and strip center style developments through size. And then the last one is walkability and traffic. So here's the next one. This is Spring Branch Walmart. So it's 281 on the right, Walmart in the back, and then like where the Taco Bell and IHOP is. So Walmart is basically in an 1,100 foot by 1,100 foot block. And the block on 281 is 1,100 by 450.
So we were allowing 1,300.
Yeah, we allow about 1,300, depending if you're commercial or residential, but it's about 1,300. And this is basically what you get in the typical kind of suburban style, highway style development that most new construction is. And this could be built today in Blanco with our UDC. So that's kind of what I'm trying to protect Blanco from. And it's not that we can't have these particular stores, but just like this sprawl style development happening. Okay. And then, so I just took the 1,100 foot block that Walmart was in and put it over Blanco. That's the courthouse square right in the middle. The block that we're in right there. Just for a comparison, I think this is a much smaller town too. Smaller scale. Okay. Another benefit of having small blocks is walkability and traffic. So these are two kind of identical layouts in terms of where the buildings are, but the street system is different. The one on the right has the small blocks like we have today. The one on the left is that kind of new typical style development. And so with traffic, if you're on the left here, if you live here, you always have to go out. Unless you're going in your neighborhood, you always have to go out onto this road. So this road has to get bigger, more lanes, and it's busier and it's less safe. So that's like a traffic example, and then for walkability, the distances. So you live here, your school's here. Just the sheer distance that you have to go compared to here, and then you're also going on this congested, busy, dangerous street versus nice local street. To walk to school. So these are the proposed changes that I have. I tried to take some of your feedback from your prior meetings. So we can talk through all of these and see, these are like suggestions. So you know, you can have some feedback on that. But basically for C1 and R5, to do the 278 foot blocks, and then yes, we can go into each of these actually. So they double or quadruple block. If you go to the next one, I think I already talked about this a little bit, but so this is on the left, that's the Lowe's here in Blanco. And so this right here is a double block, so like 2 blocks, take out the road is this section. So Lowe's could fit there. You can just kind of move the parking lot over there. The entire thing is a quadruple block, which is 4 blocks. And then the HEB and Kimberly fits into a quadruple block. So I propose that these double or quadruple blocks would be allowed, but they would have to come to you guys and to council to make sure the project fits. Get extra community input. I think R1 could be exempt from the block weight, so that's our large lot. So not trying to force people into having smaller lots. And then for R2, 3, and 4, I put this suggestion here. If you think 278 is too small for those, then I propose that they could have the kind of quadruple blocks, but with pedestrian paths, like one path per block. So it keeps the like connectivity, walkability, but they don't have to put quite as many roads in. Okay. And then Lynn, this is kind of what you were asking about, I think. So right now our commercial, so this, I think Lynn, you said that you're concerned that there's less developable land.
Yeah, because I sort of feel like for me, like things that are gonna hit our expense budget probably really should go to capital expenditure committee first. To talk with them, like what is all this maintenance gonna cost and the streets when ultimately we're limiting growth somewhat, you know, for revenues, but we're adding so much more to the budget. So what is that impact? Where, you know, sort of going to P and Z and then to city council, like that really hasn't been vetted on what that impact is. So that was sort of where I was coming from. Like, has anybody really looked at that for the vacant properties that we have now that are not in the 275 blocks? How many more roads is that giving us? How much more is that adding to our expenses where we're not even maintaining what we have now?
Yeah, so since this doesn't propose any density changes, the density of people served is the same. And so maybe if you have small blocks, you have more roads, but each road can be narrower because you same level of traffic, but it's dispersed amongst more roads versus all going on that like 6-lane road if you have less blocks. I mean, there could be trade-offs in terms of costs with road maintenance, but
But we don't really know though. Like
Well,
in other words, like right now, we have a ton of small blocks already. So now if you go block out south of the bridge, like how many more roads are we putting in the expense budget? Where right now, if that just was developed, it wouldn't impact what we're already doing now. Like that was sort of my question on vetting the request, that it sort of seems like some of that should be vetted because unfortunately we are sort of a business, you know, we got to make money to be able to fix roads and do stuff. So that was sort of my question.
Right.
Yeah, and I can actually answer that question.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it a little bit. First of all, I don't know what happened in the past, but what happens now is a subdivision gets built, okay? And then there's what we call the 1-year utility and street acceptance process, in which it's kind of good that he's here because phase 1 is about ready to get their utilities accepted at the next council meeting. So during that time, there's a road bond. And so that bond makes sure that that road was built a certain way and that there's anything that needs to be fixed, that it gets, you know, that if something needs to be fixed on it, we would pull that bond and it pays for that.
But how long is the bond good for?
So bond's usually good for 1 or 2 years, depending on how the city does it. Okay, so
Yeah.
it just depends. But that ensures that the road is built better than, sorry, some of these roads here are no road bond, or
Yeah.
just not built caliche and just put some, so that resolves some of what you're talking about, maybe not all of what you're talking about. But that is the process for how we build subdivisions.
So for me, because it's all about dollars and cents, because I work at a bank, so I sort of felt like, you know, this is a big expense change, so like, part of it was we need to change setbacks, like, I brought that up because you can't just have all these little blocks and have all those same setbacks. So then with that in mind, you know, who's gonna build this road? So someone buys a piece of property south of town and they're only gonna put a house there. Are they gonna build the 275-foot road? Are they gonna bring the 275-foot road up to, what quality it should be? And if they're on a corner lot, are they gonna build both the 275 roads? Like, who's paying for that?
The answer, developers pay for it, so there's.
What if it's in the house?
Well,
So for the house, so that scenario is kind of why I put R1 exempt from the block.
Okay,
Yeah, if
Okay.
you're buying that for a house,
That
you would be required to subdivide roads through your property.
well, originally it was gonna be city, originally when it came until today, it wasn't gonna be exempt for R1, so that makes
Well, that would make
sense.
perfect sense.
Yeah, that makes
But yeah,
sense.
no, the developer is gonna be the one that decides if they want to put police in the first 2 years, if they actually want to get some roads in there, it's in their budget. So really, in all honesty, they're gonna be paying the main costs, which would benefit the city. Then now collecting tax revenue, hopefully we can be responsible with that tax revenue to then repair the roads down the line when needed, or maintain them is a better word than repair. And that's gonna be a benefit to us.
But I
But
don't
if
think
you're
it'd
done
be
right-
caliche in the city limits. We
I'm
just
just,
have
I'm just
them-
using it as
yeah,
arbitrary,
that's
if it's in their budget, they're gonna do it right, if that's our
Okay.
requirements, they're gonna have to build it
Okay.
that way.
The last slide is just, it kind of addresses the setbacks. Oh, sorry, the one that was,
oh,
sorry, that was.
okay.
But just, so right now we have 100-foot minimum lot width. And this doesn't have to go in with this change, but it kind of addressed some of the tax revenue questions. So we have 100-foot minimum lot width for commercial, which I feel like is really very wide. So I propose getting rid of that or lowering it. And then for the setbacks, commercial, we have a 40-foot front setback, we putting that to 15, and then the sides from 20 to 10 maybe. And then R5 going from 20 to 15. So that's some stuff y'all can. So right now, for
Commercial is
commercial,
40.
it's 20.
Yeah, right now it's 40 for commercial. Which actually,
The
because
back or front?
it says right now, commercial, we don't have a minimum lot size in the UDC.
We have a minimum size, we have a minimum width.
First of all, I'd like to thank the council member. Otherwise, just so you know, this is a lot harder than it looks. You did a great job. I want to just go through just a couple of gimmies. Whatever you think about the presentation or about all the information, I think one of the things that we all agree on is 1,300 feet for length is probably too long.
Yes.
That's probably one given that everybody can agree on. So if you want to start looking at that, I mean, she has great ideas. 1,300 is too long. A lot of, at least chop that in half. But think about this and mull it over. But yeah, I mean, there's some real good information.
And we're gonna have traffic, sit a lot.
Yeah, people don't realize the square footage of those buildings, it's in your face, it's blocked there.
That was 1,100 and we're around.
So, and what about industrial?
That's a good question.
We don't have any other industrial locations, so they don't come up with zone change.
We don't have any available.
There's only 2 places that are zoned.
I know that we have industrial zoning available. Still,
We have industrial, industrial zone.
Available, but I think they would have to come for a zone change or a PDD.
Yeah, because the only 2 industrial places on the entire map are industrial. So I think if somebody would want to be industrial, then they would give us some block.
okay, so we don't have any available
No.
industrial
There's
zoning.
nothing
Okay,
sitting there waiting for it. Okay, is that
Makes
everything
sense.
that y'all have? What else do y'all think?
Well, I just had some comments about this write-up, which I'm assuming was the proposed amendment that was in the packet.
Oh, okay, so for, you talking about this or you talking for?
The amendment of the, the UDC block link standards exhibit A.
Yes, that's what I had to.
Right.
Okay.
So for me, I'm good with letting residential be exempt because I think a corner house with the two roads is an issue. You know, having to build those. Also, I noticed in the UDC, you know, they have a different setback if you're 2 stories. So how is that gonna change? Like, is commercial only gonna be 10 feet, or are you gonna change it to 15 if it's 2 stories? So just something to think about there. Also, I found the math was not correct, and I also find it confusing. So for me, if I was reading it, I wouldn't want to reference it as a double or quadruple. I would just state what it is, because when I read a 275 block, and then you tell me I can extend up to double, to me, that's 550 feet, not 605 feet.
It's because
So-
it includes that road. So that the blocks still line up, so the streets
Okay.
line up, but.
Is that what it is? Okay. So so it'd be 605 by 605, including, maybe that should go in there, including the pedestrian path. And then that would clear it up. Same with the quadruple. Here it states it's 605 by 605 again. Like one of them says doubles 275 by 605, and then it says the quad 605 by 605.
Mhm.
So if it's double, wouldn't it be 550 by 550?
Well, double would be
605?
Like this, like
It's a
one block and
rectangle.
one block, so.
It's a rectangle,
Then they get
okay.
the street on the other side.
I just found that sort of confusing, and I don't know if maybe you would draw it for people so they could just see it,
That's a good idea.
maybe
Paula.
state it, but that was the only other thing, because I'm like, well, and then I forgot the path.
Is this what we're looking at right here?
Yeah,
Okay.
that was my only comments on this for me.
Well, I still stand where I was originally at with, I think we should do this for commercial in R5, but I'm not necessarily all for it in terms of R1, R2, R3, just because I tend to lean somewhat towards property rights and trying to let people do what they want with their property. And some of this stuff, while it's great over here, I necessarily, if I was gonna live in one of these two, I wouldn't want to live in the one that was in those ones. So I think allowing some diversity in town for residential makes sense for people that want to live in different kind of neighborhoods. But in terms of managing growth, I think commercial in R5 makes sense to me.
So what about R3 though? Because now that I've really looked at that today based on that salon's request, R5 is really identical to, our R3 is identical to R5,
On residential only, but R5 allows for light commercial, but R3 does not.
but for the block links, would we want to limit it in R3 just because of the density
In
or?
my opinion, residential, if you don't want to go with the single or double block, like the council members mentioned, that maybe you at least, reduce the block size, because right now you're at 1,300, so maybe for residential, you make it something lower than that.
Well, and also the multifamily, I know there were a lot of people that didn't want the big apartment complex coming in over there where Josie's used to be. Like, there were a lot of people against that, so maybe the multifamily should be looked at too, to bring it down from 1,300, so you get more townhouse style type apartments versus the big 300 unit deals coming in.
So what I proposed for R1, no block link, R2, 3, and 4 could basically be a quadruple block. So I propose to kind of address some of that with a pedestrian path. in those areas.
For an apartment, a multi-family, it's a double wall.
Sure.
There's no fine print, right? And what we're trying to do here, there's nothing that could come back to really kind of bite us. It's really just to kind of keep that local small.
Yeah, keep keep the field.
I think it's a great idea.
My only issue with doing it across the board is, let's say you've got 75 acres that have been in your family for forever, and for financial reasons you want to sell it. I like the idea of dictating that you've got to have 96 roads going through it versus turning it into a neighborhood, which, you know, I don't necessarily want, but I want to give people the flexibility to utilize their property in the most manageable way that makes sense to them.
Is there any properties that would be affected right now or know about? Because how far out are we talking? Are we talking like
City limits.
Jay, but like,
Well, no, it'd be city limits, and she's talking about citywide. There's what, 350 acres around town?
About 350 acres left, you know.
So it's significant people, but, you know, there's 50 acres here, 100 acres here, 25 acres, you know, so it spreads out to whatever. I just want to be cognizant of protecting property rights while maintaining our community's toll for the country.
A variance could be granted.
Sure.
we're with
We
those.
should do a PDD.
In my mind, to me, this is what I said last time, to me, if someone's gonna go build a development way out there on the edge of town, for me, I don't need 275 square blocks that someone's gotta go maintenance out there when no one's gonna drive out there and ever go walk out there because we don't even have walkers downtown. So
Sure.
to me, I feel like in the development, if they wanna do more of those winding, then I'm fine with that.
I think that, like, looking forward in 50 years, that's not gonna be the edge of town anymore, that's gonna be the center of town. Unfortunately, because of the growth that we're gonna experience.
Potentially, but with annex changes, that makes it more complicated.
But if
This
it
was
was
2018, I would agree.
It might not be Blanco city limits, but I think it will still get developed. You know, so up growth up there.
That's fair. Right. Unfortunately, but fair.
So this ordinance, if you did this, if you made this amendment, I'm assuming that some of these blocks that you're talking about, these 40 or 50 acres, they would come in a planned development district, and it would give the city a little more bargaining power with whoever's in the PDD. So, don't get mad at me, but you know, PDD, so, I mean, that's obviously kind of what we're talking about.
So basically, you put this into place, and then somebody wants to come in and put some winding road, ranch style
Yeah.
neighborhood out on Wheeler Place across from K and C, then we could address it at that point.
You address at that point, and then it would come to the county, planning commission council.
Yeah.
Have you given this to anyone to read that doesn't know a thing about it? See if they understood it?
That document?
Or even about the exhibit A?
Well, but-
The amendment?
To be fair, to be in the EDC.
I mean,
but-
I've already-
Exactly.
Just the,
I was
back here.
just trying to,
Simplify
yeah.
where we can.
I fully agree with that. That was what I earlier.
I worked it once.
So
not written in.
I'm looking forward to having the whole thing read.
Exactly.
Okay, that's fine. I don't need to say anything. So my question is, can we split it? I mean, if we know that we want to do specific ones, can we pass that amendment today and then table the other ones? Does it have to be all be done? Or do we have to amend the amendment?
I might be the only ones that is leaning in that direction. My thought was, yeah, sure, I guess PDD kind of helps solve my hesitation. I just always try to think about what are we not seeing that this could affect negatively long term. That's why I make sure we think it through, but at the end of the day, we're on the precipice of larger development coming this way, and the sooner we can put something into place that protects our community, I think that is probably beneficial.
So we're not making a motion to approve anything yet, are we? Because it's not
Especially since
really.
it is to take possible action.
Well, then, okay, so if I can see if I can get it, I'll make a motion to approve the 275 blocks, which would be for the commercial and R5 zoning.
Is it 278?
Yeah.
Well, the 278, I mean, this is gonna have to be redone. No residential. What about R5?
That's what I was saying, R2, 3, and 4, right?
My personal opinion is you'd look at commercial and R5. That's one person's opinion.
What do y'all feel like for R's 1, 2, or 2, 3, and 4? Do you want the block mandate here? They can come for the quadruple?
I think forward makes sense. It's
Yeah.
more multi-family.
Yeah. I think if you're gonna do it, you're really just trying to get anyone that,
Or you want commercial 5 and
Well, because
4?
right now, we're really trying to protect the 281 corridor, right?
Right, and the reason we'd switch over to talking about doing commercial in R5 is because let's say you get a Walmart that wants to come in, they're not gonna build right on the road, right? They're gonna be set back. And so if you only did the part that was on 281, they could just build, quarter mile back. So if you just, well, I don't think you do space, I think you do zoning. Because they'd have to be doing commercial, and then it just simplifies our argument.
The thing is that we still sort of need you to tell us what are gonna be the block links for those other ones. Well, because we weren't gonna leave the 300 in place, they just discussed lowering.
Are you talking about the 1300?
Yeah, the lowering the 1300 for the 1, 2, and 3. So this standard block link, calculation would be for commercial R5 and R4. And then the
R5, R4,
1300,
C1.
yeah, C1, R5
and
and R4, which would capture that really large multifamily, and then shorten the block links for the residential, but to something realistic, so people don't feel like their rights are violated, and they can have a little bit larger properties if they want.
Like, what do you propose for, like, 605, 605 or?
Well, I would try to keep the numbers, for me, I like numbers consistent, so it's easy for him, for Warren and his team, same with like notification dates. Like, I like them all to be the same, so you can just real quick say it's this. So I would say like 605, or whatever the quadruple turns into.
But
One
then
of
it
the,
goes,
I would make it near one of those, so it's easy.
but then it goes back to what she's saying is, then wouldn't you just put this in place for all of them and just do it quadruple?
The residential.
It'd just be sticking to the same thing that she originally said.
You can do a quadruple without asking for permission, you know. You just- For residential, the quadruple, and for everything else, for C1, R4, R5, it would be, a single block unless you ask for whatever you want, a CPR.
Do you all agree?
yeah, anything to push back the big box stores really is my only thing that I like about this. I don't, they push back the time on it, but I think other than that, there might be other more important things to be trying to push through, but I think for that reason, to me, it's important enough to say that. I don't think any local, owner right now of the property has any affiliation with the HEB, so I think within a variance that would still be genuine to what they would want to do whenever that time comes up. I agree with Brendan on that for sure. However, we can protect their rights, but also keep the other big stuff, or at least a little more at bay. I think it's interesting.
Do we think this is the best solution we can come up with for protecting our town at the moment?
Well, if we're greater than what Spring Branch has right now, and that's what they're able to do, I would say cut it in half would be definitely prudent for what this town really is, and what most people want, at least from what I hear. I get to hear it at the gym, I get to hear it, I hear it all the time, and it really is. The reason people moved here was that they don't mind driving 20 minutes to HEB there or 30 minutes here. It's just to have that smaller field, less traffic. Know your neighbor a little more, and I think that can go from a safety standpoint just to an overall, I feel less anxiety from not being in a big city. So I think if we can protect that, and if it does put a little more pushback on a developer, well, hey, we were here first, right? I think you can kind of use that as some good leverage, but maybe cut that in half and then have the triple block when you're talking about, if needed, on variance, which is kind of so unique. Variance is going to be something that's probably going to be needed for many years to come.
Well, I think variances are a good tool to help us
Right.
pick and choose what makes the most sense for our town.
Now, legally, can we extend this into the DEC or not?
EJ.
Judge,
I don't think so.
all of 281? Or?
I'd ask the attorney, I don't think you can, because if it's considered zoning, if you're trying to block like the zoning, which is lot size, then you really can't do that.
Well, I think if anybody wanted to do this in ETJ, they just request to do this in ETJ, right?
Yeah, it would be part of it.
Right, but yes, it could.
And so if we take R4 with it, actually, those numbers for setbacks and minimum lot size probably need to be adjusted the same as commercial. Cause right now there's 75 foot, but there are 25 foot front setback and 20 each side, and they're not even able to build on one of those blocks.
So we just look at 278 for R4, R5 commercial, and then 605 for anything residential, unless they do an SUP, a different, or a DDP or whatever. Right?
Are you asking me a question?
Yeah, she's asking everyone up on, here. I don't want to get it wrong, I like to protect those people when we can, on all facets. That's progress. Okay, well then do we have some sort of.
Well, I just want to restate it before I make a motion. So basically on this amendment, what would need to be changed is that R4 would come up to the third paragraph and go up there with C1 and including the same setbacks. Just remove it out from down here. And then you have R1 has no maximum block length. R2 and 3 then could do the 605. And then the only difference here would be maybe just to sort of make that sound better. So does that sound good to everyone?
And we need to explain that there's a roadway or a pathway in that signifies.
Yeah, and so I'll make the motion.
I do want to discuss that part real quick. I understand the thoughts on walkability, but if I'm putting in a little negative, I don't necessarily.
You don't want to be forced to.
Yeah, well, it might be nice to walk, right? That's not my preference, and I understand it is some people's, but I feel like it's maybe a little bit overreaching by government to say you're forced to put in this walk path that maybe you put in because you think people want it. Then it goes back to the property rights. It's,
We're forcing you to construct a sidewalk anyway, and any new development is constructed for.
Should
along the roads, but
Yeah.
I think we were talking about additional walkways, which is additional property, which.
Well,
changes it up.
R1's exempt, they don't really have to do a pathway.
Sure.
So do you want to reduce anything?
I'm just, once again, my personal thought is the mandatory pathway to me feels like a little bit overstepping, but that's one person's opinion.
But if walkability is the purpose, which no one walks around here, so we're really hitting a small minority of people we're doing this for. If we don't build them any pathways, no one's ever gonna walk. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like if we're doing this pathways, you have to be a part of it.
Well, but like you said,
Yeah.
you're doing it for a small minority of people and the
Yeah.
financial burden of the property owner for a small minority of people. So once again, I'm all for people that want to get out and walk.
Yeah, but
struggle to tell.
Let me understand this. So you're saying if I was taking 3 new block sizes, making a neighborhood out of those 3, not the variance, I would be required to have pathways between each of those from this side road to this side road, is what you're saying?
Only if you're in R2 or R3, it says that you can't exceed 605 feet for your block, and you need at least one 20-foot pathway per length of a block. That doesn't mean on each side, that's one side of the block, you would have to build it.
Well, I would say that wouldn't be in the same line as a sidewalk. You're talking about.
The idea is basically, you got the quadruple block, and then where the streets would have been, you have a more narrow walking path. But if y'all don't feel it,
Well, I guess for private residents, right, someone got 3 block sizes to the private home, they wouldn't be required to have public traffic through their lot, would they?
If there are one, they would not.
no, it would be like city property. But it would be like a street, a very narrow street that doesn't allow cars.
Yeah, we definitely wouldn't want a variance for that.
Like-
No one's gonna wanna build a big fast spread and have a trail through it.
Well, I have a question
Yeah,
too.
it's sort of
If the
like-
setback's only 15 feet, how are you gonna put a 20-foot walkway in there?
I'm sorry, so if you have the 2 blocks, or the 4 blocks, so there's a street would be like this, right? If it wasn't a quadruple block, you would have a street. And I'm just saying, instead of having streets, it's like having the streets, but only for pedestrians, and they're very small. Like,
Yeah, but, well, to me, someone's not gonna wanna have 2 blocks and then have to cut the middle of it with a pathway. Because then their parcel's diminished in value because it's split. So I thought it was gonna run on the roads. The pathway had to run on the road, like,
That's
so,
just me aside.
okay,
Yeah,
But then Warren's getting out there with a weed eater every month.
yeah, going down the middle.
Well, I think for any development, you're gonna get the sidewalks you need because that's actually the commercial code regardless if you have a public area, you have to have X, Y, and Z. If it's a private subdivision, whether you have sidewalks or just extra wide roads like our neighborhood, which accommodate for safely vehicles to be parked, pass both ways and someone walking, you're gonna have to follow those code anyway. So I think you're gonna get the walkability regardless if Warren's on top of his game like he has been with the developer. But for someone that wants 3 block sizes that happens to own that property, just put a house on one side, I think we definitely need to protect the fact that this is an option and you know, people who are sure would be willing some to say, yeah, let's make a little public easement to come through, but to make it a hard, fast thing, that would definitely be overreaching.
And I wouldn't be a proponent of forcing someone to build a walk path through the middle of the property. To me, it should only be on the public right of way along the streets. Because too, it has to do with fire, you know, police. They're not gonna be driving down the middle of someone's, you know, little pathway to get to people. So that I feel like walkways for the public need to be on the public roads for me.
Okay, so do we have any sort of a motion?
That needs to be updated.
Yeah.
Okay,
exactly.
do we want to table this to the?
It needs to be cleaned up.
Yeah, I think the documentation should be cleaned up for sure. So
Yeah.
Sweet. I like it.
So do we want to table this till next month? I think, is it already going to council? Regardless of what we do?
Well, if you want, okay. You don't want to give a recommendation, just with the council. If you're tabling it, then I'll talk to the council member, but I'm gonna suggest they go back to you. So if the answer is you want to table it, they can come back.
Well, I think we all agreed we were gonna do, R4, 5, and C1 without the larger apartments and
Do we want to start there?
there.
Yeah, so that's why I was saying, can we split it? Things that we know for sure that we want.
Okay.
Recommend those.
Yes, we can make a motion.
Right?
Okay.
And the others, we can specifically table.
Okay, I'll try that motion.
well, I think what the things I'll have said that differs from the document you have is to have R4 be the single block instead of a quadruple block. Change the R4 setbacks to match C1, new proposed setbacks, and to remove the walking paths in R2, 3, or 4. I think that those are the 3 things you'll have to think. I mean, just make a motion.
You'll agree.
So
Alright.
They want a
So I make a-
recommendation.
I make a motion to, for the amendment to the block length standards to be applied to C1s, R5 and R4 to, require the 278 blocks with the 10-foot setback and no minimum lot sizes and the 15 feet front setback. Those would also require, if they were gonna, go beyond the 278 block, that it would need to come for approval to do the double or quadruple block.
We need a second.
I second.
Oh, you're still going. Oh, back. Hang on.
R1 would not be subject to, R1, 2, and 3 would only be subject to not exceeding 605 feet,
We're gonna table.
which is quite, you wanna table that
Are
one?
we gonna
And
table?
no pedestrian paths.
I think we table, are we gonna table the ours? The darker regions? I think.
All of y'all's thoughts. It
Well-
sounds like we all kind of agreed on what she's saying. And
I
let's
thought we
really talk
agreed.
about it.
R1 would not be subject to a maximum block length, and R2 and R3 would fall under the single, double, or quadruple block length, but it would not be required to add in a 20-foot pedestrian path.
Or did you get all that?
except for what would be, wait, I have a caveat, except for what would be required by the city building requirements.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I said,
The novel.
yes.
All right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Wait, I gotta make notes now. R4 is the blocks,
I hope this is progress over time. It sounds like it is.
is exempt.
Is she smiling?
R2 and 3 can do singles, doubles, and quads, and no path.
Yeah. And it's case by case too, because if someone comes in there and their development is a neighborhood or, you know, apartment there by code and law, have to have a sidewalks within and around all the roads, you're probably gonna get the walkability that you want regardless with all the access points too.
But just make sure you put in here except for what would be required by the city building standards. So if any of these fall where you want them to put that sidewalk in, they have to.
So this is being recorded. I will listen to this tomorrow. I'm just kind of middle based on the report.
6 different times.
Okay,
Give it on.
I used to have to come to the gym and do that.
so I made the motion, you seconded it?
Andy.
I did.
And what if I wanted to buy 2 blocks and put my house in the back?
And it was unanimous.
Called a candy strip.
Okay.
Unanimous, okay. Last thing we're gonna talk about, or next we're gonna do approval of minutes. I didn't see anything that's last meeting, anybody else? Motion on minutes,
I move to accept the minutes as presented.
She seconded.
okay, all there, all right, that's good. Now it's the sign ordinance. Did everybody get a chance to look at what Warren sent?
Yes.
Thanks, sir. Good night. Enjoy the rest of the evening.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So I'm gonna go ahead and go backward, then we're gonna go forward on this. So tonight is just to go over the changes that you as a commission, I believe, asked for. And then we go over more cross-outs. I can only cross out about 10 pages worth of stuff, so I didn't eliminate that much, but then the next meeting, I would notice as actually public hearing and then they go into council. So tonight, it's another basically workshop for them. So, Brandon's been great. He kind of let me know what he thought that he and you all had thought were standards. Let's look at the standard list first.
Yes, please point out anything you disagree with. I've tried to remember everything from the meetings for my notes, but
I'll make this as big as I can so that everybody can see this.
the last two.
Remember, size requirements for wall signs is 2.75 for every 1 foot of building size. For example, if you have red light, if there's a 50-foot section, that would be 50 times 2.75.
Sorry, the back page on y'all's is printed in.
This is the very last page, the second to last page.
Yeah, it starts with that. So go through those, tell me anything that stands out to you. I went through these packets, started a few things. A few things that I thought that didn't need to be in here, but my question then comes back to which part? Oh, yeah. So one of my question was in the packet, it talks about prohibited signs. My question is it easier to just write allowed signs? That way we don't have to explain it into prohibited?
Yes.
All
Please,
signs are
Steve.
prohibited.
It's hard to list them, because if you don't list them, they're allowed.
That is, to say all signs are prohibited except.
Yeah, we need to list what's not, like, we need to put in there the ones we don't want you to list.
What about, so my thought is if you list the prohibited signs, then it's anything we haven't thought of is allowed. But if you say all signs are prohibited except, and then you list the ones that are allowed, doesn't that cover?
Okay, then I get what you're saying.
Yeah, in the whole concept of trying to simplify it, I think
Yeah.
that is.
Then you don't have to define pole sign, you don't have to
Okay.
define balloon sign. It's just-
So I've been trying to do that. It was when I went through this a couple times, that's easier said than done, but I have definitely tried to do that.
And if you don't need to come sit down with you, and we can just bounce it back and forth. There's a lot of definitions and explanations in here that I feel like if you just said all signs are prohibited except, and you don't even have to explain what a full sign is.
What I can do is I can remark this again.
Okay.
Maybe on Monday, so if I do over the weekend, think about it, and print it off, and then Monday we'll go through it again. But, so all of the, so these are all the things that I based the markups on, was the things that Brandon gave me that he thought that we kind of agreed to, and then I said, I went through here and obviously, so I'm gonna explain this for everybody in the public to understand. It did not touch the first 4 or 5 what they call divisions. There's basically 10 divisions in this sign ordinance. And the first couple, I think one was like a generally, so if you go through here, you know, the first division, it's generally, basically a general provision. Some of the stuff was just kind of, like I took the safety, the communications, efficiency out. You guys said if you wanted to kind of make it as good as possible. Kept the purpose.
Well, I think if you say purpose, including safety, I don't need to explain what safety is.
I took all this stuff out in the beginning. There's some boilerplate stuff we had to keep, and then so what I want y'all to think about is some of this boilerplate stuff, we really don't think it's needed. We can take it out, but try to keep the general terminology. And then another thing that took a lot of stuff is all this, you know, the definition. So we kept the definition. So think about that, and then just think about so what from about what is it now? 40 pages.
Do we have to make all the definitions up part of the ordinance?
I mean, a solid ordinance. you
Yeah,
know.
it's all legal docs.
And so like in here, like it has hill country style, like that doesn't really need to be defined if we're not,
We take that out. I didn't like that.
neutral colors. Well, I mean, that one can come out if we're not requiring. Psychos, so like sign administrator, well, we don't even have one.
Put city.
Yeah, I think I put in there that it's the city administrator. I don't know where it is. I don't know where
So
that
when
is.
you go through that document, Warren, I noticed like you put, no full size prohibited, but do the, control F and do a find and search poll. Because it does come up in there more,
Check.
so those can be stricken from the.
But yeah, I mean, like balloon sign, and then it talks about corner lot, but if we're not forcing people to only have one sign per side, we need to define a corner lot, so. I can give it to you at some point on my thoughts, or anybody want to say yours?
Well, I just had a couple actually.
Sure.
Didn't have 4 pages comments. Page 23, the changeable copy sign, and I feel like the sign ordinance started because of this. It doesn't really describe the changing timing of the change of the electronic sign. I know we have discussed potentially maybe they could only change it, you know, once an hour, so when just flashing, scrolling and updating. That wasn't mentioned. And then there's nothing in mention of color that we had all agreed nobody wanted the bright flashing neon stuff.
Is this
So-
something talking right here? Is it page 23?
Yeah, 26.05, .002. And that was my only other question was, were we going to say no flashing neon? And then did we want the timing of do we want it to scroll, or do we want it just to state there's an event and then an hour it goes later? Like, what were we gonna do to try to avoid it looking like the signs that are out of the city limits south of town?
I thought,
That'd be a nice neon sign, looks pretty. Good, but not black.
But you have to remember in my mind, whatever we approve, everyone's gonna have it. So we can't just assume one person's gonna have it. We have to look at this holistic picture that everyone will have it.
but that's why I thought we
Yeah.
said no to electronic signs, and then if somebody wants one, then they come apply for variance.
Okay, because it left in here religious, government, and school, and gas stations.
I think those are like legally required,
Okay,
but one of the better answer on that for me was like electronic time for gas stations. I think
Yeah,
that's
just
the
the-
law
yeah.
state law thing.
Yeah, then that's a lot.
Well, under our page 23, we're allowing changeable copy signs, it says for
Those are like the one in front of all 300 where they go up and change the letters manually.
yeah, but don't we want to allow the digital electronic? Is that's what the church wanted and they got declined.
I thought we had talked about last time not allowing those, but
I thought yeah, it's not allowing, but they can come in for a variance. And
it's, I don't think we've only seen 13 of them along
Well-
281, but one out by the high school. I'm not.
I mean, just know that's what happened last time. They're not allowed. They came in for the variance. We approved the variance. They went to city council and they were denied. So we're sort of not doing anything for that process. It's,
But we're not trying to solve the problem for one business. We're trying to solve the problem for businesses across the board. And fortunately or unfortunately, if we approve a variance to go to council and they deny it, that's,
okay,
we did what we did.
okay.
Else thoughts? I think that's what we talked about. Because I think when it gets down to having all the churches around 281, now you got 12 of them across the town. Now you just have.
Well, see, that's why I was in for muted, like black, white, matte color, not flashing, not scrolling. But that's fine, we can do variants. And then the only other thing, page 24, on an off-premise sign, it says can be allowed, and that just needs to be changed to may be allowed.
Or are we talking, oh,
Page
okay.
24, when you discuss off-premise signs.
May,
Yeah, I wouldn't state they can, I'd just say maybe, may. And then, page 24 again, sandwich boards, which I'm okay with, but there was nothing about them bringing those in. At some point, it said somewhere they had to bring them in after hours.
That did used to be.
And then
which page we talking about?
page 24,
Okay.
and then the page 5, the changeable sign. It's making the changeable sign sound like the only thing there is manual. So I don't know if we're adding electronic, if we're not, if they're coming to variance, and you don't need to add that.
So what am I changing on that?
Well, that was just, they want to, page 5, you can ignore it. They want that to come for variance.
Okay.
That was the only thing I picked up in there.
yeah, I like the list too on the back that. That really does kind of, oh, perfect. And that, I think if you have that, people are more willing to look through the options of what's allowed and come up with a good decision than not really have anything approved and then fighting every step of the way for just getting some signage. It was pretty bad a couple years back. And some people couldn't get it approved and didn't put one out. So I think this is the way to simplify it and kind of steer people in the right direction. For sure. And the electric sign, if you really have a business that needs that kind of sign, you're gonna be a special person. Most people don't want that in their business. They want classy.
Right, like, the church had a good point
Yes.
with their proximity to the school and not making it on 281, but.
Yeah, I don't know if it's approve it. Yeah, but that would be a variance. We do.
Lynn, are you still okay with what it says here on the sandwich board that I wasn't quite following you? Are you good with this or not?
Well, it seems like somewhere, maybe it was an old UDC, it said that the sandwich boards could only be out during business hours.
This one doesn't say that.
Yeah, like that had already been removed, and I was only thinking, do you want all those sandwich boards out after hours, only for the fact, you know, people can walk down the sidewalk, they can move them, they can become a hazard for people, they could go out in the street, you know, the sandwich boards really are sort of for working hours versus just left out there,
So
so.
the town I worked for before, we made them bring the sandwich boards in.
Right.
I think it's a minor thing. If you want to add that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I just had those minor when I read through it.
I don't do
I think it's more owner responsibility too. They don't want to be spending money on signs, get left out, get destroyed.
that. No, right next to reserves down here.
Anything else that I missed or that more missed or that we thoughts or trying to make it where we keep the town cute and beautiful, but yeah, simplify people understanding and help businesses be successful. I did recall that.
I know, but yeah,
Oh, people one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's something easy.
All right, Maurice, so you'll look at it some this week and then we'll talk next week.
Yeah, we'll meet Monday or Tuesday of the following week and we'll, run through most of this and then we'll try to.
So I have one last set of questions, Lori. On the murals, I sort of see this could be a problem for the city. I mean, you sort of left this sign up for you guys to decide. So what if you don't like what their taste is? Should the mural have at least some qualification as far as like no political statements or a couple of those things that I think most citizens would agree you wouldn't want in a mural?
Political, aggressive, negative.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like it needs a little more of a caveat to it because I sort of feel like, you know, they're gonna say, well, you can't tell me what kind of sign I have when you're sort of just leaving it up to you to decide. I think it needs to have a few little parameters to it,
Oh,
kind of with the givens.
No foul language.
Yeah, foul language, political,
add some
offensive,
guidelines.
just a few, something in there.
Tasteful.
Well, no sex, no cigarettes. I mean, I don't know, people didn't want the, you know, like some of the things they don't want, like, so I just think I put a little bit of caveat to the mural, because you've only left it for the city to decide if they
Well,
like
and,
it.
and just so you know, I'd rather things be very specific because when the administrator make decisions that people don't like,
Yes,
I'd rather be more specific so I can just say I'm following them. That's fine.
Fair enough.
yeah.
Okay, anything else y'all want on this?
I have just one quick question.
Yeah.
For Lauren. So on the removal of repair of signs warrant, it says it must be done in 90 days. Like, so does that need to be included in this? Is there a process for that? Okay.
Oh, I mean, it's, you
Okay.
put it in here.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Then I must have not retained that.
Yeah, so if you buy a lot or own a business, that sign is just dilapidated. Place. Or if you're leaving too, you can take out your old sign,
Mhm.
but really that's gonna fall in the new owner.
And I don't say which one, but I'm dealing with one right now where there's, you know, renewable. So, yeah, there's a process. You know, you should call the person. If not, then you can send a certified letter and, you know. do 90
So we
days.
just kind of have like a informal offboarding, business offboarding kind of process, right? If someone closes down and you have to come.
Well, and I think this says basically removal in 90 days or ask for a variance. So it's like, okay, we need an extra 2 months to get this down because of X, Y factors. Okay. There's a plan.
Okay.
And we still left the right of way setback, because we have a new sign that went up that's sort of hanging over the highway, so the setbacks will still be in there.
Still 8 foot.
Okay.
That's still there.
Yes.
Okay, cool. I guess before we get out of here, thank y'all for going up. Did y'all have any thoughts on what we talked about tonight that we might have missed?
I have one question.
Okay.
The ice house, when did they get all that neon wrapping around the top?
Oh, I did notice that a couple weeks ago, but I don't. So that
Yeah,
night, they've got bright blue lights that go around the
Blue
top
and
of it.
red.
Blue and red.
Where is that?
The Shell station up there right next to Andrews Point. I don't know.
Right next to the Lone Star Bank.
Oh.
I can notice it, so when you come over that hill by Cadence, you can see it all the way down there. I don't know if it's against any ordinance, but it's,
Let me look at it. I don't know.
interesting.
I can go on my porch and I look out, it's like huge eyesore.
Okay, well,
I
then,
mean,
yeah.
to me it
Is
is.
it lighted at night or only lighted during the day?
Night, 4-7.
So I guess that would be some sort of light trespassing kind of thing, and there's a visual problem.
I'm gonna look at it. I don't think it's allowed, but I'll.
Because I
Thank
sort
you for
of,
pointing that up. Forgot about that.
I mean, I sort of feel like the neon light maybe could be an issue.
So.
This has always been that.
I said the same thing a month ago when I saw that.
Yeah. So 3 AM, it's a beacon.
Are we looking at that and saying there's a problem, or are we wondering why you're up there creating?
I was like, yeah, I'm like, dude, it was so bright on there, so I took a picture.
All right, well, let's get everybody on the motion. All right, let's get out of here. We're getting out at 7:09. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks for bringing that.